What's going on, everybody? Brezzy43 coming back with you here. Our next video today is going to be a little different. It might end up being a longer video. I'm not sure yet, but I wanted to. I looked at that last video that I posted, and I wanted to kind of talk about something that I personally need to work on as a player. Of all the games that I play, as I said in one of my earlier videos, I came from a Magic the Gathering background, so. Magic the Gathering is a game that has a lot of similarities to Pokemon, with the exception of Pokemon requiring a bit more of reading of what your opponent's going to do. Um, Now, I've personally always had a liking, and I've always like followed the VGC basically since like 2015 when or 16 when Oris came out. Um, but I didn't really get a chance to play, and I didn't really have any friends that play, and I still don't really have a lot of friends that play. I've got a couple of guys that I like to team build with, but they don't really play doubles. They just give their input from like a Pokemon perspective and things like that. So, um, one of the things that I experienced in Magic was trying too hard to, um, one, I spent too much time metagaming. Two, I spent too much indecisiveness around my deck, and three, um, a bit too much of trying to stop my playing too defensively in Magic, which is different than playing defensively in Pokemon. In Magic, if you play too defensively and you keep trying to stop your opponent from doing what they want to do, you end up losing because you didn't do what you should have done to win, sort of thing. Which is very different than playing defensively in Pokemon. I want to make sure that I clear that up because, like, I think I'm a bit more of a defensive player in Pokemon, but in Magic, it was hindering me as a player to um, constantly try to stop my opponent from doing what they were doing instead of just recognizing that this is the moment that I need to turn on the Jets and try to win the game. So that's something that I want to work on as a Pokemon player because in my last couple, I've had a couple of moments here. It happened in Players Cup 3 qualifications. It happened in my last video. Um, I made some mistakes because I was trying too hard to out predict my opponent or trying too hard to outplay my opponent. Um, Instead of making what was actually a good move. And after doing some talking with my friends and doing some looking at some other like Pokemon players out there that play a lot and have a lot of content that they create, I think ultimately I just need to play more. That was something that happened with Magic that helped me fix my problem a little bit was just playing more games of Magic. And in Pokemon, I suspect it's the same thing. Being able to identify what the correct play is and then making that correct play. Um, I really enjoy both the analytical side of Pokemon and Magic, but I think in Pokemon I've been spending a little bit too much time with it rather than actually playing the game. So Magic, there's a different side of analytics that you can do where you in Magic, not to get too off the tracks here, but in Magic you can have up to 4 copies of a single card in your deck, and the number of copies you play can sometimes give you an advantage depending on how important the card is for your deck. And Magic has what's called a sideboard, which is very similar in Pokemon, where in Pokemon you bring 4 of your 6 Pokemon. In Magic, you have a 15 card sideboard, and in between games of a best of 3, you can remove cards from your main deck in exchange for those 15 cards in your sideboard. As long as you start the next game with 15 total cards in your sideboard, it can be any 15 total. So that's a little Magic snippet. So in Pokemon, I just need to play more, and I need to start thinking about bettering myself as a player in terms of making good decisions with my team. Um, I'm a person who doesn't like to necessarily always play the best thing. What I often do, which is true in Magic as well, is I pick something that I find most enjoyable out of the top things. In Magic, that was something that I did in the format that I was playing, and I found a style of deck that I really liked, a strategy that I really enjoyed, and I explored that strategy in depth, and I played as much as I could. Um, so the thing that the way I can correlate that to Pokemon, in my opinion, is by finding a team or a subset of teams or a strategy that I really enjoy and play the crap out of it and just learn as much as I can about playing the actual game. Um, so that's what I want to do moving forward. I want to share that with you all that that's what I'm going to be doing moving forward. That's what I hope to enjoy with the game from here forward. So um, I'm gonna talk about the team that I want to use. And this is the team that I'm going to stick with for a while now. If something else comes up, maybe I'll borrow a rental code. But um, I have most of these Pokemon in the game, so I don't need to do much breeding. I just need to put them on my team and use them. So um, without further ado, let's jump in. So as most of you know, I built this was a team I was using at the end of Series 7. This team had some things that I really liked about it and some things that I thought it did well. Ultimately, this style of team is what a lot of players will refer to as bulky offense. Um, these are Pokemon with really high stats that aren't necessarily the fastest Pokemon, but they have good all-around stats in general, and they have multiple avenues that they can attack you from. I have an airstreaming Moltres, I have Trick Room on Bronzong, I have a Trick Room option with Mudsdale, I have Raichu for speed control and disruption, I have Tapu Fini for terrain and like bulky water as another Dynamax candidate, and Incineroar with Intimidate. So, from this point, I I want to take some of these things and apply them to what I want to use in Series 8. I really enjoyed this team. It was something that I understood. One of the things that I learned in Magic really early on that I've brought with me to Pokemon is you can copy somebody's deck in Magic much the same as you can copy somebody's team in Pokemon. But if you don't understand what the members of the team do, or if you don't understand the EV spreads, then it's not going to do you much good in terms of using them. In Pokemon, it's a little bit easier to figure out. You start finding out things that you that one hit KO you, things that you outspeed, whatever when you borrow somebody else's team. But in Magic, it's a little bit more difficult. Um, that sideboard conversation that we had where you have cards in your sideboard, if you don't understand why those what matchups those sideboard cards help you against, it doesn't do you any good. You're basically just wasting sideboard cards. So in Magic, I do the same approach where I find a strategy that I really like. I see what other people are doing. I start looking at similarities between them all, and I pull them together to find a really strong option for me to use. And I understand what they do. The part of the reason why I think I played so well with this team when I was using it was because I understood what the team was doing. Um, I never really got to a point where I didn't get the team quite right because I didn't have a ground resist on the team. I had the Bronzong and the Moltres, but um, I struggled against certain ground types, and I also struggled against Tapu Fini because Incineroar couldn't hit it. Raichu could hit it, but it was really frail. Mudsdale, it was kind of a chaotic neutral thing, and it resists my body press on Bronzong. So um, I had some glaring weaknesses that I needed to figure out with my team here. So um, what did I do moving forward? Let's see. So this team aside, there's some really popular teams right now in Series 8. There's the Sun stuff that I've been using. There's Kyogre, there's Lapras Zacian, there's Calyrex and Indeedee, there's Calyrex Ice Rider and Trick Room, there's Dialga, there's a lot of different archetypes. And part of the reason why I think I'm struggling with Sun a little bit is it is a bit more aggressive, it's a bit more offensive. It doesn't really fit my style of play. I like to have synergy on my team like this one. This one has good type synergies. It has good switching potential. It's got a Volt switching Raichu with Fake Out alongside a Fake Out Parting Shot Incineroar, supporting both Moltres, Galar, or Fini, and then Bronzong is a really good option against the Calyrex Ice. Or not, it wasn't Calyrex. It was just Glastrier at the time that was terrorizing this Series 7. So taking this style of team, I think personally that these Lapras teams look really interesting. As most of you know, if you watched the video for a little while or the channel for a little while, I was experimenting with this Lapras team right at the end of Series 7. This was a Japanese players team. Um, Basically, the whole general strategy was to max Lapras using Koko or Incineroar as support, and then play to a end game of Porygon Ferrothorn um, under screens. The Lapras I ended up using was really slow because I wanted it to be good in Trick Room, where I could set Trick Room with Porygon and I could start dealing damage that way, and kind of go from there. Really bulky Lapras overall. and I liked this set a lot. I liked this team a lot. This team was really, really enjoyable to play. I think it fit my play style as a player. Um, this was the instant that we used with Sugarberry. This was like the Coco was the only member on the team that obviously the creator of the team said that Coco was not the best electric type, but the reason why he used it was to fix matchups against things like Urshifu and stuff. Because if you look, we have 4 Pokemon on this team weak to fighting. So Coco fixes the fighting weakness quite a bit because it dazzlingly one hit KOs a lot of fighting types. So looking at this team, looking at my other team that I played with Moltres and Raichu and Finny, and then looking at what people are doing right now, I think I can slam all of these together and play Lapras Zacian hybrided with my team from Series 7. So that's what I'm going to start using. And I have the team up here. I'm going to talk about a little bit about what I've been thinking about. I've been trying not to think about the members of the team too much. I'm trying instead to think about, or the EV spreads of the team too much. I'm trying instead to just go with things that I know work. And focus on playing rather than doing all this analytical EV spreads because we're not really teching for a tournament. We're just using, we're just playing the game. I really enjoyed using Amoonguss in this team, the series, this Players Cup 3 team that I used. I don't have much experience playing with it prior to this, so this has been really cool. I really liked this team as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the team and the members, and then I'm going to slam it all together at the end and tell you what I'm going to start with, and just focus on playing. In my next few videos, I hope to feature this team a lot. So, Lapras. Basically, there's no reason to run Lapras as shell armor anymore. Like, there's not many Togekisses running around, and Urshifu isn't really that much of a problem for the team. You can use it. Like, most of the time, it's going to close combat you instead of Wicked Blow you anyway. So, yeah, I think Life Orb is best, but I also have a Light Clay version up here as well that I'm going to talk about. If you're going to run Life Orb, you can basically run two different styles of team, or two different styles of Lapras sets. You can run Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, and Thunder. And these are really strong. You could run Blizzard if you want for the strongest possible max move, but because you're not setting up because you're not setting up Hail, Blizzard doesn't do you any good after Dynamax. So Ice Beam makes a bit more sense. You can actually set up Rain with Max Geyser, which makes Thunder 100% accurate after Dynamax, which is really cool. So if you wanted to use a really offensive Lapras with a really offensive move set, this is what I would recommend. 108 HP, where you hit your Life Orb optimization, and you do want to run some HP investment in Lapras. Even though it is so high, you get more benefit from running defenses. Lapras is going to be taking a bunch of attacks. You'd rather just, like, unless you're EVing for something specific, put a good chunk in HP. The 60 defense, I don't think is EV for anything. I think I copied somebody else's spread. They were doing this. It was David Kutesh on his Hamster Mania VGC YouTube channel. If you don't follow him or subscribe to him, check him out. But this was his spread. I just changed one thing because I like to optimize when necessary, and this is 1 point away and gives us a little bit of extra bulk. So the whole idea with the speed here is to try to outspeed as many Incineroar as possible because it's really bad. Lapras doesn't have a super high special attack stat. With a Life Orb, it can actually deal some damage, but you want to max Geyser Incineroar before it parting shots you. If it parting shots you, then you're in some trouble, especially if it parting shots you before you get to attack. That's not great. So that's the theory behind this Lapras. But I personally, after using the team, I like this better. And the reason why is because Freeze Dry lets you still hit Water type super effectively. And Perish Song is a really strong endgame that can work really well for you if your opponent's team is not ready for Lapras. Or it allows you to bring Lapras in the back as well for a really strong endgame. And basically the idea here is if you pick up a couple of quick knockouts with Lapras, you can set up a Perish Song and just stall your opponent out with Protects, which is really strong. There's not much else to say about this set. The other set is what Fevzi and his friends have been doing, which is Light Clay. to get as many turns possible of Lapras. Basically, you just run a bulkier Lapras. You EV down to this EV jump right here, and then you put the rest into bulk, and you just use. It's definitely a Perish Song Lapras. If you're going to use Light Clay, it's definitely you definitely perish. But the whole idea here is just to like often Lapras doesn't even stay Dynamaxed for its full time. It sets up Rain, it gets off Aurora Veil, and then it switches out or dies or whatever. Um, but that's the whole idea behind this set. Personally, I think Life Orb is better. You can use whichever one you prefer. I think this might have been Fevzi's exact spread or pretty close to it. I know that he did this EV down here, but I don't remember exactly what he's running for bulk. It doesn't really matter that much unless you're calculating for something specific. Lapras is pretty bulky. Once you hit your jump here in the speed stat you want, just put the EVs in. And this is Lapras. So I think Life Orb is what I'm going to be using first. But I also want to explore Light Clay. But make sure you run Water Absorb. This thing's really good against Kyogre. You don't want to run Shell Armor. You'd rather just make this Water Absorb so Kyogre can basically not touch you. Next is Zacian. Zacian's going to be the restricted Pokemon on this team. It's going to take the place of the Bronzong on my previous team, and Lapras is going to take the place of Finny. So I'm just skipping this song here, sorry. So originally people were using Zacian, and they were using max attack, max speed. They were going Behemoth Blade, Close Combat, and then Wild Charge or Play Rough. Some people were exploring Substitute as well. But I don't remember who started doing this first, but basically the whole thing was like, why are we running max speed Zacian? If we take a look at the speed tier here, Regieleki and Calyrex Shadow are the only two used Pokemon right now that outspeed you. You can never outspeed these Pokemon unless you have Tailwind or drop their speed somehow. Pheromosa sees a little bit of fringe usage, but generally it's just Calyrex and Regieleki. So you don't need to run max speed. You don't even need to necessarily run, unless you're trying to speed tie opposing Zacian, which doesn't really matter that much. I guess if it comes up a bunch for you, you can run max speed still. But the next Pokemon that's actually used that sees play is Dragapult, which doesn't see a ton of play right now, actually. So I don't even think you have to EV down to this. You can go down to 130s, which if we take a look, Koko, Mewtwo, Eternatus, Spectrier, Aerodactyl, Crobat. There's some Pokemon in here that are used. Not really though. Like Spectrier, not so much. Anymore at least. Koko, not very good right now. It kind of got taken over by Regieleki. Eternatus doesn't really do anything to Zacian anyway because you're immune to both of its stabs. Mewtwo doesn't see a ton of play. I just don't think Mewtwo's fast enough. But Aerodactyl, you don't really care about. You resist everything. So the next thing that you can kind of EV down to is like you could EV down to Cinderace if you want. You could EV down to even lower than that potentially too. So basically the whole question started, why are we running max speed? Like if you want to run a max speed, max attack Zacian and just not even think about it, just go for damage. This is the set I would recommend. People don't run Play Rough very often because Wild Charge is really good against Kyogre. Close Combat breaks the Steel type matchup, and then Behemoth Blade is your best move, obviously. But this other spread is the one I'm more interested in. I don't remember who coined this spread first, but basically this is just bulky Zacian. Protect, Swords Dance, Behemoth Blade, Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword is more important than Close Combat on a set like this because you don't want to be lowering your defense when you're not guaranteed to be the fastest thing. But Zacian inside of Aurora Veil is so bulky, like so bulky. It's not even funny. And 156 Adamant hits that jump, and then it's actually more offensive than the other one. And then 180 speed outspeeds 111 Thunderous. Thunderous hits 179 Jolly max. So 180 outspeeds that. The rest was just dumped into max HP, defense. Pretty standard. I like this Zacian. I think I'm going to try this one. I think this one's really interesting. Gives you a really strong late game. You don't really need the extra coverage most of the time on a set like this. You're just going to go for whichever one is. Most of the time you're clicking Behemoth Blade against Steel types. You're clicking Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword's really nice because it ignores the stat changes of Pokemon. So something like Kartana, who boosts its defense when it maxes, you just have Sacred Sword to KO it, and Sacred Sword's going to KO it as well. If we take a look at like the most common, we'll look at that in a minute. But yeah, this I think it's like a 50% chance to KO. So this Zacian spread is definitely the one that I want to use. Next up, I'm going to keep the Raichu. I have two different ideas for Raichu. This was the this was the spread that I was using on my original team. I was using Focus Sash. When you run Focus Sash, this is pretty free. This max HP or max speed, max special attack is pretty much just easy. Um, you know that you're gonna have to be doubled up on, or they're gonna have to hit you with a move that sets Sand or Hail and then KO you from there. Um, but this guarantees that you don't get out, like you don't get one shot. It requires a double up. You can be annoying with Fake Out, Volt Switch, Charm, Eerie Impulse, things like that. um, I didn't hate this set. This spread did very like this set worked for me very well. I think I went back and forth between Nuzzle and Charm because I paired this with Incineroar and I was able to just like cycle into Incineroar if I needed to. um, So Nuzzle's a really strong option to drop speed for your Lapras, as well as Moltres on my other team because you could get like you don't those Pokemon are kind of slow. They appreciate the Nuzzle speed drop, which is really like can be really impactful sometimes. And then 100% accurate paralyze is really 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 strong. So the other Raichu spread that I'm going to experiment with right now because I know how this one works. I want to try this other one is going to be Assault Vest. Um, this exact spread actually came from Wolfglick's 2016 Worlds team because he a lot of the Pokemon that are legal and used now were used in his 2016 Worlds run. Um, this 180 speed allows you to outspeed base 100s. They hit 167, so you can get a Nuzzle off or a Volt Switch off. I might end up upping this a little bit. I'm not sure. Um, the uh, the whole idea was that like there's certain Pokemon now that might see play that outspeed you a little bit. I don't think you need to outspeed Kartana, who hits 109, but you do like Garchomp is 102, Nihilego is 103, like things like that might end up coming up where I might have to bump this up a little bit. Um, but this special defense and HP set is to guarantee live Origin Pulse from Modest, Mystic Water, Kyogre, which is pretty crazy. Considering Raichu's defensive stats are pretty low all over, minus its special defense. So if you take a look at that, like um, we get to run, we get to guarantee survive Origin Pulse without having to take the Sash away from our team if we want to use Sash on something else. We don't hit Water Spout, but I have a feeling that when Water Spout happens, it's not going to be happening when they're at max HP. It's probably going to be like they're probably going to be a little bit lower than that. Um, and the whole idea with Raichu over another offensive electric type for me is that I think Raichu makes the Kyogre matchup even better because Kyogre now can't even touch Lapras. Um, excuse me. You have Fake Out and Nuzzle, which are really annoying for the Tornadus or Whimsicott plus Kyogre, and it forces them to actually have to have Protect or Switch. And it can. I'm gonna have to figure out what the best opening sequence against them is, whether it's go for Nuzzle into Kyogre, reading the Protect, or Fake Out the Tailwind Setter or whatever. So I really don't know for sure what I'm going to end up doing, but it seems like a nice partner with Lapras. It gets really bulky inside Aurora Veil. Like we guarantee take Water Spout as well, so definitely a good benchmark to hit. Wolf's Raichu is 204 in here, and what is this 68? I think. Yeah, 68. I just cleaned this up a little bit. I went down one, um, and in favor of the even number here for Assault Vest because you actually get 2 points like that if you take a look at the calc. Um, this is just a numbers thing, but if you do 109 times 1.5, you go to 163.5 from the Assault Vest boost, which doesn't round to 164. It drops you to 163. But if you do 110 times 1.5, you get 2 points effectively. So by adding 8 EVs, you don't get 1 point, you actually get two. So that's the whole thought there. Um, this defense stat in Wolf's 2016 video, he said that he EV'd from Mega Kangaskhan. That obviously doesn't matter right now for us. So I'm gonna start with this, but I'm probably gonna end up dropping quite a bit of this potentially for more special attack or maybe more bulk as well or speed. So and then this spread was really good for him in 2016 because Event Raichu actually got Endeavor. And so by living all these attacks, you had a better likelihood of dealing damage by just endeavoring stuff. Raichu doesn't get Endeavor anymore, so the best alternative is Thunderbolt or Thunder. Or like it does get Faint and stuff like that, but I think Thunderbolt is probably the best option for Raichu, making the Kyogre matchup even better. If you look, Kyogre almost gets two shot by this, and if we manage to like if our opponent forgets about Raichu, if we lead like something else next to Lapras and we switch it in, this is a two-hit KO from a Lightning Rod boost, so that's kind of nice. Um, so that's Raichu. This is probably the Raichu I'm going to use first. The second one is the next member is Incineroar. Incineroar is just really good right now. I wanted to include my Assault Vest spread that I found out because I'm really proud of this spread, just because of how offensive this Incineroar is against Calyrex and against Sun. Both of them don't really appreciate this much damage from Incin. Like if we take a look, let's import this set. I think it might already be imported, but if we look at Incineroar and we say it's in Sun and we go to like I think I'm gonna use my Venusaur because my Venusaur is really bulky. But if you look at this, in Sun, we still have a favorable roll to KO Venusaur. Well, not favorable roll, but a roll nonetheless. And I don't think many Venusaur are going to be this bulky. I think a lot of them are going to have more speed, or like, I don't know if a lot of them are doing this sort of an EV spread because Venusaur does have use outside of Dynamax as being a Sleep Powder Mon. So I don't know. I'm going to have to see for sure. But with the Assault Vest taken by Raichu, the next option that I think is worth exploring is Safety Goggles. Barry's got a lot worse Barry's got a lot worse because of the Calyrex forms with Unnerve. So being able to like relying on a Shuka Berry to survive a Max Quake from Calyrex Shadow is not reliable. This specific spread is hitting the first jump in Adamant max speed, good amount of special defense, and a lot of speed to outspeed Lapras and things like that to get a parting shot off. So that's the idea here with Incineroar. I might end up changing this up a little bit in favor of more bulk. But the reality is like special attackers are really popular right now in Series 8. And so having the extra defense points isn't really necessary right now. And if you're not running a Berry, you kind of get a little bit more out of being a little more offensive because you can't guarantee that you're going to stick around for a while. Snarl is really good against Calyrex Shadow, parting shot instead of U-turn because now we're not forced to run U-turn. And Safety Goggles to fight Sleep and Amoonguss and things like that. So yeah, this is Incineroar. The next Pokemon on the team that I want to talk about is Moltres. I think this Moltres here is the one that I used on my team in Series 7. I hit the second jump here, and I hit my speed benchmark that I wanted. I don't remember why I EV'd this way, but I did. And then the rest I dumped into bulk. Protect, Nasty Plot, Fire Wrath, Air Slash with Weakness Policy. My team was Raichu, Incineroar, Bronzong, Finny, and Mudsdale. And often on the matchups where I brought Moltres, I wasn't bringing Mudsdale. So Moltres can get up a Nasty Plot pretty reliably and still outspeed a lot of things, especially when you're talking about double Fake Out and and Lightning Rod Raichu. There's not really a lot of ways to hit this thing without hitting it super effectively and to KO it, that is. And sometimes people try to ignore it, or they try to like target the partner. And Nasty Plot is a really good way of punishing that. Um, so that was what my theory was with that team, and I might still run this one. The other one that seems interesting is a bulkier variant, um, because Raichu has Nuzzle, and we like having this extra bulk is really nice. This like Moltres plus Instant Roar against Calyrex is going to be really really good. There's not much that they can do about it. So um, this spread is pretty nice. The speed, it doesn't really matter too much. I kind of just maxed HP and put the rest into speed after I hit my modest, but 120 would technically outspeed things that are trying to speed creep things that are speed creeping base 80. Um, excuse me. Or base 100, I mean. Base 100 hits 120 um, without any investment. So I think it's base 80 that could creep this. So um, it doesn't really matter that much. We have Nuzzle Raichu on this team. This is going to be a fine one, and this extra bulk helps us guarantee that we survive more things, and helps us get a Nasty Plot off. In reality, Nasty Plot could be Taunt as well, depending on what we end up finding we need more. But Moltres and Instant Roar against Calyrex is going to basically just be lights out. We have Fake Out to stop the Whimsicott if they run Whimsicott. We have Snarl on Instant to beat it as well. Um, I think this is going to be what we want, for sure. And most Calyrex are running Mud Shot instead of Draining Kiss. So we actually they can't even really touch Moltres for much damage. So that's Moltres. I think I'm going to try this set out, but I also still have this one bred up. So um, the last member of the team is going to be Amoonguss. This is a Cobaberry Amoonguss that I think Pollen Puff fits this style of team really, really well. Being able to heal up members like Moltres, or Lapras or Zacian is really, really good. Spore and Rage Powder and Protect are pretty standard. I think you want to skew special defense for Amoonguss right now because there's just more special attackers. We have Intimidate. The rest goes into defense. We'll be okay. And Koba is for a lot of the airstreams. You can lead Amoonguss plus Kyogre and have more game against, or sorry, Amoonguss plus Lapras, and you feel safer to go for Rage Powder, especially against flying types. Um, with Raichu on the team, I don't know if Koba Berry is as necessary because Raichu is actually a flying resist that can nuzzle things too. So that's interesting. The next one is an eject button set, and I don't know how I feel about this one. I saw this eject button and I was skeptical at first, but it was really really good when I watched it. The eject button it plays really well with the Perish Song endgame because it gives you a free switch for Regenerator, and you can bring in something like Incineroar or something like Raichu to mess with attacks potentially. And you just get a free Regenerator proc, which is kind of nice. Still Pollen Puff. Sludge Bomb is a possibility as well, to help against other things, but with Zacian on the team, I don't think that Sludge Bomb is as necessary. Um, we don't need to run Energy Ball because we have Freeze Dry on Lapras and we have Raichu. So Energy Ball doesn't really help that much against like water and rock types and things like that. We've got a lot of tools for those. And then the last spread was what Fevzi was running. This was a Focus Sash Amoonguss with 100 speed. This 100 speed actually speed creeps Calyrex Ice. If you look at Calyrex Ice, if for some reason they run a minus nature, you actually speed tie it at one of the things that I could see the reason why they made this spread is that if for some reason they see Amoonguss on the other side when they have Calyrex in, maybe they don't go for Trick Room right away. Maybe instead they go for Glacial Lance. And most of them have done some grinding to not have a perfect IV, but it's harder to do with legendaries, obviously. So this 100 speed helps you outspeed Calyrex outside of Trick Room. So you can like go for a Spore when they're not expecting it. Like maybe they don't want to set Trick Room with your Amoonguss there because normally a minimum speed Amoonguss is going to underspeed Calyrex and therefore is going to be moved before Calyrex inside of Trick Room. So you don't want to like if you're the Calyrex player, you're not really going to want to like set Trick Room against a Spore Amoonguss. So Um, that was the whole logic there. I kind of like that idea. I might try that out as well. Um, the defense Fevzi's team had double intimidate on it, so the defense EVs missing wasn't as big of a deal. Um, and so they ran the speed, and then they just hit their jump here like I did with 156. So that's the whole idea there. But I think I'm going to start with Koba Berry or Eject Button first and kind of figure out what I like from there. So altogether, this is the new team. Um, we've got double fake out support for either Lapras or Moltres, who are the primary max candidates. We have Zacian for our um, restricted Pokemon, and then Amoonguss to provide redirection and Spore. Um, and I'm gonna give this one a try and see what I think. Um, the the whole idea against a lot of the popular teams, like against Kyogre stuff, you're gonna have Lapras, Raichu, Amoonguss, Zacian. Um, and then you have like this Zacian spread. If we take a look at it, Zacian custom set Kartana. I don't know if they have most people are running most people are running pretty bulky. Um, like 444 244 with an assault vest. This is one of the most popular ones, I think. I can double check that obviously. Where are you? Yeah, AV is the most used item by a lot. You lose the ability to protect, which isn't as big of a deal for Kartana when you're making it so much more bulky. Um, but if you look, even if they steel spiked like 3 times, it doesn't matter because we have Sacred Sword instead of Close Combat, which is a guaranteed KO at this range. And let's say they manage to get like 2 Beast Boosts and a Knuckle, even at +3, we still take all these attacks very comfortably. If they're max attack instead, +3 does have a chance to KO this spread, but that's not under Aurora Veil. So this is our end game plan against Kartana. Is just play to a Zacian end game, which is really good. Against Sun, I think we're gonna rely on Lapras, Incin, Zacian, and then maybe Moltres, maybe Raichu, depending on the team. I don't think I want a Moongus. Against them because it doesn't really provide much. They often have Venusaur, which this thing can't really touch. They often have like this thing doesn't really do anything to Groudon as well. I'd rather like look into resistances like Moltres being my only ground immunity, um, and then lean on Lapras as best as I can. If they are pairing it with like our team like we did with Thundurus, then I might bring the Raichu. Um, but I think Incineroar is going to be really good against a lot of the team members, and then Zacian obviously comes to every battle, and then Lapras is going to be our max candidate against them. Um, Against opposing Lapras, we should have a really good time because we have Lapras Raichu, and then we also have Zacian, and then another member from there. Could be um, could be Incineroar, could be Amoonguss, things like that. The whole idea is to choose like you bring Zacian to every game, and then you choose between Lapras and Moltres most of the time. I suspect that some of the time they will be coming together because late game Moltres inside of Aurora Veil is pretty insane. Um, but if you have Moltres Lapras, you choose between one of those two, and then you choose 2 supports. Very rarely, I can't even think of very many situations where all 3 of these Pokemon would be coming, just because then it's going to be Zacian, Amoonguss, Incineroar, Raichu. Then who do I max? Incineroar, because Zacian can't max. It's part of the feature of the Pokemon. So I'm not as sold on this. That like basically you're just choosing two of your 3 support Pokemon um, to bring in. One of the things I did think about too is we have to be a little bit careful when we bring against the Rain team when we bring Raichu and Amoonguss because we're a little bit lacking on damage. I might, after playing a few games, I might up my special attack a little bit. Um, but the only real damage dealer is Zacian, so we have to be mindful about that. But yeah, so against opposing Lapras, it's going to be my own Lapras. Um, probably Raichu, Zacian, and then either Amoonguss or Moltres or Incineroar, one of those three. I think Raichu comes against them a lot because like nuzzling opposing Lapras is really good. Um, you get fake out pressure. You have you're gonna take Lapras as we can do those calcs right now. Actually, let's grab Lapras with Life Orb here. Let's just do some calcs into my Raichu. Um, oh, hang on. So if you look, like we take both of these attacks very very comfortably, and let's just add Thunderbolt on here just in case. Um, so Thunderbolt doesn't do a ton of damage, especially once I set up a Veil, but we do get two shot by Geyser, which is a big deal. Um, and if for some reason we catch them as well and we get a +1, um, then they start to take a little more damage from it. So we have a pretty good game plan against it. We can Volt Switch around. We can do different things like that. So um, I think that this is a good Pokemon against the Lapras as well. Depending on their set, obviously, some if we're going against Fevzies, and we drop this to 196, we even more comfortably take this. And then we don't really have to. Even Resonance isn't even a guaranteed two hit. Um, Geyser is, especially after rain. Like, yeah. So, um, I think Raichu's good in the mirror matches, like Raichu, Lapras, Zacian, and then Amoonguss or Incineroar or Moltres, depending on their team. Um, Calyrex Shadow, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Moltres plus Incineroar is going to be a really strong lead, and then it's probably Zacian and Amoonguss. I don't think depending on the team, you might be able to do Raichu, um, but you're not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to fake out at all, um, because of Psychic Train most of the time. I think one of Calyrex's most used partners is Indeedee. But if they do have a Lecky and maybe some other stuff, then Raichu potentially could be good. Like, if we look at this common pairing, let's say they have Calyrex Shadow, Regieleki, whoops, I didn't mean to hit that. Regieleki, Whimsicott, and then like a couple other things, then maybe Raichu sees like a better time. But I think my default lead is going to be Incineroar Moltres, and then I'm probably going to bring Amoonguss Station. Even though Amoonguss doesn't match up that well against Calyrex, like I said, Raichu or Amoonguss is going to be the other one. Um, Depending on the other members of the team. If they have Indeedee plus Calyrex, Amoonguss doesn't seem super great. I probably want Raichu. But I don't think this is a Lapras game. I think this is a Moltres game for sure. Next, Yveltal. Yveltal, I think we're gonna use. I think we're gonna use Lapras, Raichu, Zacian, and then Incineroar or Amoonguss would be the other member that we would bring. I could technically foresee something happening here where we would bring Moltres instead of one of these other supports, depending on the configuration of the team. Yveltal is often paired with like Metagross, and some people still do like they bring their own Raichu as well, things like that. So um, yeah, it's going to kind of depend on the rest of the members of the team for Yveltal. Groudon, we touched on. We're going to be leaning on Lapras, Incineroar, Zacian, and then our last member is probably going to be Moltres or Raichu, depending on the rest of their team. Moltres matches up well against Groudon and Venusaur, not so much against Charizard, I don't think. And then Amoonguss doesn't really do anything against them. Raichu could match up if they have like a Lecky or Thundurus or things like that. So that's Sun. Dialga. Dialga's a bit trickier, I think, because we don't have a ground type. So Zacian's going to be really good against it in the late game. I think this is probably a Lapras one. I think most Dialga um, run Flash Cannon, Earth Power, like Steel Ground Dragon, and then Trick Room Protect. Some of them run AV, and then they run like Thunder or Ice Beam or something. Um, so I think we're gonna play this one slow and try to outbulk them. Zacian is gonna come in the back, Lapras, Raichu, Amoonguss, or Lapras, Incineroar, Amoonguss, depending on depending on the configuration or of the rest of their team. Um, but the most common partners um, we match up pretty well against overall, so um, I like that. Calyrex Ice, probably not going to bring Raichu in this matchup. Probably going to be, um, I would imagine that like, let's see, Ice move, ground move, fighting move. So Moltres seems pretty good, even though it is weak to Ice. We're probably going to be doing Incineroar, Zacian, Amoonguss, and then either Moltres or Lapras. Um, if they have a lot of things weak to Lapras like this, then I would probably bring um, I'd probably bring my Lapras, but if they have other things, like if they have a Lecky and other things that are weak to Raichu, I might bring Raichu as well. But I think this is a Moltres matchup. Um, even though we are weak to Ice, I don't think Lapras can meaningfully damage Calyrex enough to really warrant it. And I think we need to rely on Incineroar to do the rest. But again, it's going to come down to configurations. So um, Solgaleo probably going to be a Moltres matchup as well. I don't think Lapras can pressure it offensively enough, and I think that the late game stall option against them is not going to be very good. I could see these back four being very good against most of the configurations they would have. So yeah, but yeah, that's the team. That's a bit of an overview of what I'm going to be trying. I want to play more. I think I need to. That's going to help me grow as a player. And stuff like I have the mind for the game and I understand a lot of it, but I get too deep into mind gaming myself. When I play that I make mistakes that I shouldn't have played. Like that last video I uploaded where the last game against the Sun team with Moltres, I'm not forgetting that very easily because it was just like looking back on it, it's like, oh, that was such a no-brainer play to just make that, and whatever happens on the other side, I don't really care about. Um, I was just way too scared of the trick from going back up. I didn't even think about them switching in to Groudon. So I just need to play more. This style of team really makes me happy. I really enjoyed Moltres Raichu when I was using it before. I was dabbling with Lapras a little bit. People are using Laprazation. This is an example of what I like to do with Magic, and I'm carrying it over to Pokemon, which makes me very happy. I'm finding a restricted team that I really like that brings home with me, but I'm making it my own a little bit as well. Um, I'm I like using Lapras. Lapras is one of my all-time favorite Pokemon. I really enjoyed my Moltres team that I was using, and Zacian's obviously very good. And people are using this, but I did a little something extra with this Raichu that I think might be good right now, and I want to try it out. So I'm gonna definitely give this team a whirl. I'm excited to use it. I think that it has a lot of things going for it that I really like. Um, I talked about my matchup plans against everything, and now I just need to play. So I'm gonna finish building it. I only think I have Raichu with this. I only think I have a Raichu with this spread left that I have to breed, which shouldn't be too hard. I have a fake out Lightning Rod Raichu already, so shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, that's the team. I hope you all liked it. This is a bit of a longer video, so I'm sorry about that, but I just wanted to kind of get these things off my chest and sort of let you guys know that even I have a good mind for the game. I struggle a little bit with playing it. This is my first time actually building and playing VGC. Um, and one of my most successful teams I've used so far in Series 6 was a team that I took to top 100. I'm really proud of that team. It was an example of this. It was proven strategies that work. We implemented Trick Room Reuniclus, we used Rhyperior, and we made it our own a little bit by metagaming a little bit as well. So I want to focus less on spreads and less on all these specific EV calcs and things like that because in reality they're not really coming up that much. The metagame doesn't seem to have solidified itself into a spot where these type of calcs they happen frequently enough to be EVing for them. The big one that I did with Raichu was just the Kyogre one. The big one that I wanted to do with the Lapras speed was outspeeding most Incineroars, things like that. So I've got some ideas in my head of where I can go moving forward with the team. Small little tweaks that I can make to speed stats and bulk stats and items and things like that that I'm going to be testing out that I'm really excited to use. So thank you all for bearing with me. Sorry for the last game. It was a rough one. The last video, some rough games there, but ultimately, I just need to play more, and I'm really excited to use a team that I think is really good, that other people are using as well, and I hope that it's as good as I'm hoping it is. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys all in the next video.